Hello and welcome back to another episode of A Weekly Waypoint. That's right, it's that time of a week once again where I fire up a game, play a few rounds of whatever it is, and yap to my heart's content about whatever the heck it is that I've been playing this week, and other bits and bobs too. Today, we are playing Star Wars Battlefront 2. No, not the one from 2005, that was last week, which you have of course already seen because we live in a very fair algorithm, which shows people the things that I make. No, today we are playing the... Oh god, when did this one come out? I'm gonna guess 2017, let's have a look. Yes, I got that right. Why did I get that right? I need to go and touch more grass. This, if you're wondering, is the Battlefront game that I have spent the most amount of time playing, and I am exceptionally fond. I think this is an incredible game. Of course, I know it had issues at launch, but the game that it is now is just fantastic. If you haven't played Star Wars Battlefront 2, honestly, give it a go. If you're not into like online multiplayer games, I'm actually bot matching right now and I'm having a great time doing that. We will see some instances of bots firing at walls or running in circles. Unfortunately, they don't quite invest the same amount of resources into programming bots that they used to nowadays. Jeez, I say nowadays, this game is 7 years old. That's wild to think about. 8 years old, oh god. But it's a miracle that it got bots at all because... after, like, I don't know, Unreal Tournament 3, I feel like people just stopped making bots for video games, which is a shame because, as I talked about last week, I really do enjoy sometimes just playing against bots. It's just fun. It's a different kind of gameplay where you are more integral to the success of the overall game, and it's slightly less frustrating because you're not being matched against players who are more skilled than you and dying every 5 seconds, and you know, there's still a lot of merit to playing the online multiplayer, don't get me wrong, but it's nice to have the option, you know? And I played against normal bots. You can change the difficulty, you can change the length of games, you can tweak a whole bunch of dials, and it's nice playing offline with bots because you can choose which maps you want to play, you can choose... I guess you could choose which modes when you queue up. But today we will be playing one match of Supremacy and one match of... I think it was just called Missions or something, where you kind of like have to advance through a set amount of objective, one team attacking, one team defending. And of course, Battlefront 2 has a bunch... It has an arcade mode with a bunch of like... specific missions to play against bots. So like this is a scenario where maybe the stormtroopers are attacking Yavin base and you have to, you know, it's like bot games with extra steps, like little side objectives and stuff like that, and you have to try and survive without dying or stuff. It's been a while since I played through it, but it is a fun little side mode to occupy yourself with. This game also has a campaign, and I highly recommend the campaign. It's not like Halo 3 or anything, don't get me wrong, but it's if you're a Star Wars fan, I can pretty much guarantee you're going to enjoy it. It's a really fun little story that takes place directly after Return of the Jedi. You get to play as a few different characters, and it's just... I might actually replay it sometime soon because it is just a good Star Wars story. It's canon, it's not Legends, because this came out in 2017. It's from that time in Disney canon before they had put out Rise of Skywalker, and, you know, things were still possible. People still had at least mild interest in, oh, what happens after Return of the Jedi in this canon. It's around the time that the Chuck Wendig Aftermath books were kind of big, and they're pretty good too. You should give those a read. And yeah, in general, it's just a good time. And of course, I think the main selling point of this game is just how authentic it is with the graphics and the general aesthetic. It's so authentically Star Wars. I feel like Battlefront 2 and probably Battlefront 1. I've never played Battlefront 1, the EA one. But these are probably the first Star Wars games you can point to and say like, wow, this looks like the movies. Like, this looks, I mean, better than the movies, because the original movies came out in 1977. Started to. Sorry, you've got to be specific with semantics sometimes, because otherwise people jump at you. Maybe I shouldn't be specific with semantics. Maybe I should bait comments. Yeah, I sure do love this Star Trek game. Isn't that so great? I love that this Star Trek game is based on the show from the 50s. But yeah, honestly, I think... it's interesting, isn't it, with kind of like live online multiplayer games like this, it's difficult to tell how much you're going to like them in the future, because when they are out and when they are doing things in the moment, you are going, yes, this is one of my favourite online multiplayer games, it is great. And then 5 years later, you're like, huh, looks back at Destiny 2. That sure was a moment. I guess that's not the best example because people still play Destiny 2. One of the Call of Duty games or one of the Halo games, like Halo Infinite. That's a good example. I really enjoyed my time with Halo Infinite. I can't see myself spending as much time with it in the future as I do with Master Chief Collection. And because it's hard to gauge the staying power of an online multiplayer game, it's hard to gauge which ones are going to be your favourites in perpetuity. But 8 years later, I think I can say Star Wars Battlefront 2 is one of my favourite online multiplayer games of all time. Or I guess games of its genre, because that takes out the campaign mode and all that stuff. I heard that the devs were on Twitter surprised at the fresh interest in this game and talking about, like, do you guys want a third one? And yeah, I would be so excited to see them do a third one. I think there's plenty of new Star Wars content that's been made in the meantime that they could pull from, like Andor and the Mandalorian, and maybe even Ahsoka if you want to go wild with it and have a map set in a different galaxy. I don't know how you would justify having a fight between, like, two factions there, but maybe you don't need to. It's not like in canon, as far as I'm aware, the Stormtroopers ever invaded Yavin. But yeah, I just love the way this game was made, with a whole offline, like, campaign and arcade mode and bot matching mode and all that stuff. Games just don't get that kind of treatment these days. Games didn't really get that kind of treatment back in 2017. And I think with the rocky launch and the weird pay-to-win elements that this came out with, a lot of that stuff definitely got overshadowed. And of course, to touch on my point from earlier when I say about authentic Star Wars video game experiences that feel like they take place in this universe and stuff, yeah, of course we then got Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and we got, I would say Star Wars Outlaws is really good at that too. But there's just something special about Battlefront 2 and its gameplay and everything. It's just so great. And apparently it is popping off right now in terms of player count. I have not had any trouble finding matches. I'm bot matching just because I felt like bot matching. I could have found a match quite easily. If you listen to conversations in the gaming space, this is probably not news to you, but since the conclusion of Andor Season 2, this game has had a major spike in popularity. Not because it's directly linked to Andor in any specific way, but just because it scratches that Star Wars itch, and I think that says everything that I've just been saying about this game. Honestly, I've never checked out Star Wars Battlefront 1, and I know it's a dead game, but if it has offline bot matching, I might go back and check it out just to see if it's got different maps and how the gameplay was slightly different. I don't know if we'll do that next week as part of a weekly waypoint, or if that's just something I'm going to explore in my own time, but that could be pretty fun to do. I know it doesn't have a campaign or anything though, so we'll have to see. But that's enough about Star Wars Battlefront 2. Shall we transition sublimely, swiftly, sleekly, sexily into talking... I don't know what that was. Let's talk about what I've been playing this week, because the Steam Summer Sale is on if we want to continue our silly syllabants. And would you believe it, I picked up a few games for cheap. I know, it's crazy. It feels like I can't go a goddamn week without doing this at the minute. I'm so back into PC gaming and the Steam ecosystem that this is just who I am now. First of all, I picked up Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, which, if you are not aware, is the silly Final Fantasy spin-off game about the man yelling, "I'm gonna kill chaos," every 5 seconds. This is one of those games that when it got revealed, we all kind of laughed at it. We said, what is this silly game? This looks terrible. And then I stopped paying attention to it, and then at some point in the last few months, I turned around and looked at it again and realized, oh, it's beloved. People really, really like this game. And as a, I guess, late-blooming Final Fantasy Giga fan, maybe I should be paying a little bit more attention to it. Actually, that's a dumb way to say it. Maybe I should be paying more attention to it. Shut up. No, maybe I would like to see what it's about because it turns out that it's not trash. There you go. So, Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin is kind of a Final Fantasy 1 spin-off slash revisitation, developed by Team Ninja, who do the Ninja Gaiden games. Or I guess Neo is another game that they do. And I always assumed it was a Souls-like and kept my distance because I don't really do Souls-likes. And then on my recent research of this game, all I saw was people calling it an action RPG. I didn't see anyone referring to it as a Souls-like in any capacity. And I went, oh! I looked at the gameplay and I went, oh! Actually, this looks more like Final Fantasy 16, which I really enjoy, and everyone says that this game does better than Final Fantasy 16. I should play this game. Turns out it's a little bit of a Souls-like, but in a capacity that I can engage with, a la Jedi Fallen Order. It's not punishing, it's just a little tough, and that's fine. Games can be tough as long as they don't make me retread 15 minutes of progress when I die. In fact, it's not even really that tough, it's just about developing muscle memory and honing reaction times. But yes, as someone who played through Final Fantasy 1 last year, and really enjoyed it, It's really fun to revisit that world and that story through a modern lens, even if the storytelling is a little bit batshit. I'm only 3.5 hours in, but I'm still not going to give any spoilers. But, you know, I've kind of got an impression of what they're going for. And yes, by the way, I absolutely will be uploading a video about this game. You will see all of my silly fails and reactions to Jack gabbing on about chaos all the time. The writing is so weird. I don't know, even still, I don't know if they are intentionally trying to be goofy, or if it is just someone didn't move on from Final Fantasy X dialogue while the rest of the world did. It's definitely a budget title, unfortunately. You can kind of tell it in, you know, a lot of the animations in the cutscenes and stuff, and the fact that if you want to roam around town talking to people, that's done through a menu rather than actual open world gameplay. I would love to see a sequel to Final Fantasy Origin that explores Final Fantasy II's world or 3's world. I've heard people say 3's probably better for it, and I haven't played enough Stranger of Paradise yet to really make a ruling on that, but I can see where they're coming from already. But I would like to see a sequel with more budget put into it. Unfortunately, I've been informed that's probably never going to happen. But yes, it's really fun to revisit the Kingdom of Cornelia and see it reimagined with modern 3D graphics and all that good stuff. Now, when I call it a budget title, I do wish to stress they have put the funding into the parts of the game which are most important. Combat feels fantastic. The way the whole job system works is really cool. They've invested lots of thought into how each classic Final Fantasy job would feel in an action RPG kind of a setting. And funnily enough, the change of genres has also changed which jobs end up being my go-tos and my favorites. Like, as a Dragoon main in 14 and someone who loves Dragoons in most Final Fantasy games, I found myself not liking Lancer at all. The way that you attack with the spear and the different button combinations to do like spins, but they also kind of change your direction because you're also turning as you do the button combos. I just can't get on board with that. That feels really bizarre to me. Pugilist, though, oh my goodness, you can punch people very quickly and it feels really fun to do that. I will say, as a samurai enjoyer, I'm really enjoying Ronin, which is kind of like the if Pugilist turns into monk, Ronin turns into samurai kind of thing, although that's not technically how this game works. I mean, it kind of is, but like, you unlock samurai through leveling Ronin, but then you can still continue leveling Ronin, if you know what I mean. Anyway, I was using, I forget what it's called, it's the default job that you start with. Is it Swordsmaster or something like that? Swordsman? There's a few different ones that start with the word sword, so you kind of have to be careful, but it's the one that uses a greatsword, the one you start with. That's probably one of the more beginner-friendly ones. I'm very happy to say I'm really enjoying Ronin, which is a little bit more measured with its sword strokes, and you have to be a little bit more careful about how you adapt to using your weapon animations. That was a really badly constructed sentence, but I'm pretty sure I got the point across. I'm having a great time with it, especially with like the kind of special move where you do a big AoE swing. But it actually sounds like that as well. It's great. I don't really understand the samurai job that you unlock with it though, because the special move for that is just repleting MP. So, replenishing. My thinking is you're supposed to use Ronin and Samurai together because you can equip two jobs at the same time and kind of juggle them. And my guess is you're supposed to use the Ronin special move, which uses MP, and then use the Samurai special move, which replenishes MP, so that you can use your Ronin special move faster. Honestly, at this point though, that is just a guess. Another thing this game does, which is really cool, is it takes parts of Final Fantasy 1 and goes, it would make sense if we transplanted a dungeon from a different Final Fantasy game into the overworld here. And I've done the first one. I'm not going to mention what it is, even though you can find out by just looking at the Steam page. It's one of the example ones they talk about, but on the off chance you don't want to do that and you want to be surprised by it, I will let you be surprised by it, because it's really cool when you look around and go, hang on a minute, I know this place. And I'm a sucker for seeing parts of games that I really love recreated in different games, I guess. The other game, or I guess games, that I picked up in the Steam Summer Sale were Octopath Traveler 1 and 2, because every Steam sale for the last, like, half a year, I've been eyeing those up, and then I've gone, they're on Game Pass, I don't need to, but with a story RPG, I need to have that security, that this is not a limited time accessibility because of how I approach these games. I can't get invested in a narrative heavy RPG, which I guess is RPG in general, unless I know that my access to the game isn't going to be revoked based on some arbitrary licensing agreement. I mean, I don't think I need to justify it any further than I just want to own these damn games because they're beautiful and awesome and I want to play them on Steam. And so while I've played the first 5 hours of both 1 and 2, the really great thing about Octopath Traveler is you can start as one of any 8 characters. So instead of doing that RPG thing of I played this game 3 years ago for 5 hours and now I need to do those 5 hours all over again and I won't be as engaged as I would be because I'm half remembering it the entire time. Now I get to go, hi Ulbrich, I'll get to you. I'm gonna go check out Harnet's story, which I've never seen before, and by the time I reach you, I'll be seeing what it's like to reach you with a full party instead of starting as you, which isn't going to be like a crazy different experience. It's not that dynamic. That's one of the main criticisms of Octopath Traveler 1, but it's something I'm interested in seeing nonetheless. And so for those of you who know Octopath Traveler, I've started with Harnet the Huntress, and I've gone down to Therion the Thief, and I will be continuing to go down to, I believe the next character is this alchemist character, and I'm having a really good time so far. Unfortunately now Octopath Traveler 1 only really gets talked about as an inferior version of Octopath Traveler 2 because 2 is such a beloved game, and from what I've heard it pretty much fixes all the problems people had with 1. But I think 1, especially if you're okay with playing it on Game Pass, right, I think it's still well worth a look. For those of you unaware, 1 and 2 are not narratively connected, they're separate worlds, you can just start with 2. I'm just being my usual weirdo self and wanting to play every game in the series. Luckily for me, every game in the series at the minute is just 2 games. I do hope they continue this series though. But, you know, it has its own stories to tell, and it's the atmosphere. There's a reason Octopath Traveler made such a big splash when it first came out. The atmosphere is unparalleled. It's gorgeous, and yes, we've got lots of HD 2D remakes of older games now and stuff like that, but Octopath Traveler does have its own aesthetic and its own vibe within the HD 2D formula, and I just can't recommend it enough. I'm having the nicest time just exploring the world, enjoying the story. Cozy fantasy is quite big right now. I would argue that it's quite cozy fantasy, just in terms of like you get to see how these people live, and obviously it's very hero's journey in many ways, which isn't really traditional cozy fantasy, but it's just got cozy vibes. And I think as someone who, since first playing Octopath Traveler 1, has now gone and played some of the older Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest games, I think I appreciate what Octopath Traveler does even more now, especially in terms of combat. I am currently playing through Final Fantasy IV. I'm not loving the active time battle system, so it's really refreshing to go back to a turn-based system in the traditional sense of there is no real-time elements, and you get to stop and think about what you're going to do next without going, the bar's filling up. But what Octopath Traveler does is it introduces a boost system, so you can either attack normally, or you can use, which will generate boost, or you can use boost up to 4 times to do multiple hits. And that is a really simple little system that adds so much extra tactical thinking to the traditional turn-based combat where enemies have weaknesses and so on and so forth, and it's just so much more engaging. I love it. Now, of course, as I mentioned, I am still playing Final Fantasy IV, trying to keep ahead of Grinding Gear with their playthrough of the Final Fantasy games, and I do still want to finish Dragon Quest III HD 2D before Dragon Quest 1 and 2 comes out in October, which is, well, it's actually not that far in the future. I've just suddenly realized, oh heck, but that's not quite such a hard deadline, is it? And I really seriously considered holding myself back and not starting Octopath Traveler, but I just, I know I want to finish more games. I talked about this in previous weeks. I'm not putting down Final Fantasy IV, quote unquote. But ultimately, overthinking aside, I've just had a really nice few hours in Octopath Traveler Town, and that's what I needed. It was probably the highlight of my day on the day that I played it, just in terms of, you know, mental health funky, turn my brain off, enjoy a story, enjoy the cozy vibes. It was what I needed! I've also been continuing my playthrough of Gex Enter the Gecko via the Gex trilogy. I am closing in on the end of the game. I have I'm pretty sure now surpassed the point that I've ever reached in my childhood playthroughs. I've come across a few levels that I simply have no memory of, and I said this last week, but I'm continually surprised by how good of a game Gex Enter the Gecko actually is, considering how much it's just kind of been treated like a meme game in the last few decades. It's actually also just a really solid 3D platformer that I'm having a great time with. The last thing I want to talk to you about today is not about video games, it is about the Weekly Waypoint, and this very neurotypical spreadsheet project that I've got going on. That's right, nothing spicy about my brain. So this is something I've been considering doing for a while now, and that's making a spreadsheet for the Weekly Waypoint and going through and rewatching old episodes and putting in, you know, data stuff like the title and the game I played and the length of the video and the date that it was uploaded. But also just a little column talking about which topics I covered that week. So like if I said, oh, I played WoW this week and I played The Sims this week, or I don't know why I said The Sims, but you know what I mean. I'm looking forward to the new Avengers movie, then I would put those things in the little text field. And it's kind of a way of archiving the Weekly Waypoint in case YouTube ever explodes, but it's also a reason to revisit episodes outside of the usual episode 1 anniversary episode I go back and rewatch every year to talk about. Bloody skimmed through that one, fucking hell, I've seen that enough times. But the Weekly Waypoint is 7 years old now, and it documents an aspect of my life without fail every week, and it's interesting to go back and revisit that. I'm doing it in short bursts because if I spend too much time with myself I will lose all semblance of who I actually am and probably my mind in the process. But it's been really interesting to go back and watch, like, so far I've done the first 8 episodes and see the things I talk about. First of all, my commentary style. Oh, I was mumbly, I was muttery, I was meandery, I did not know what to talk about, I did not shut up about technical difficulties. But also it's really funny because I'll talk about how much I've enjoyed playing Diablo 3 that week, and current day 2025 me will go, ah, fuck, now I want to play Diablo 3. I'll talk about how excited I am for the upcoming Crash and Spyro remakes, and I'll suddenly go, God, now I need to play those games again. I am influencing myself from the past. It is such a strange phenomenon. So far though, it's been a surprisingly positive experience. I was worried that it would be a bad idea, especially with my mental health being a little wobbly lately. But actually it's been quite good because I've been listening to a version of myself that is always happy and excited about his hobby. And it's cool to know that that enthusiasm hasn't dimmed in 7 years, if you know what I mean. I have had documented 7 years of adventures within gaming and watching fucking shows and movies and reading and all this stuff. Like I said, it's just one aspect of my life, but it's a positive aspect of my life. It's a very vibrant aspect of my life, and because of that, I feel like I'm kind of reliving the greatest hits of each week of the last 7 years, if that makes sense. Not all of them, of course, you know, most of those will be to do with real life events and people and such, but it's also fun when I say something and it makes me go, oh shit, I forgot about that, but I remember it now, you know. It's so weird how memory works, where something that you will not be able to recall on your own is jogged in your memory and then you can remember it again. Why do our brains encrypt memories? It's so strange. But yeah, I don't think I have too much to say about that other than just it's been surprisingly fun and less surprisingly satisfying. I was expecting this to be satisfying. I should really take a data entry job because I'm a kind of boring person who I think would enjoy it. I don't know, it would probably have to be about something I'm actually passionate about. If it was maths, I would probably die of boredom. Unless you're a future prospective employee checking my background to see if I'm worth hiring, forget I said that. I can train my brain to like maths or whatever. It's okay, they're probably gone now. It's funny because I'm currently reading Mistborn Era 2, and there is a character called Steris. I'm not going to give any spoilers, don't worry. But Steris is someone who considers herself very boring, and she takes pleasure in like making lists and preparing things ahead of time and all this stuff. And I think the way she's presented is very neurodivergent, and I didn't like her at first before I really realised who she was, but the more she's been in the story, the more I've really appreciated her and kind of identified with her as well. And yeah, there you go. There's a fun little preview of my next book review over on the other channel. Steris is an S-tier character. Anyway, that's going to do it from me this week. Thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed your stay. I will catch you in whatever I make next. Perhaps. Perhaps not. Perhaps you will depart this place forever. I hope you will not. Anyway, whatever. Bye.